Hotep, Black Power, giving honor to the Creator, giving honor to the ancestors. As always, giving honor to my sister, Chief of Staff, Brother Harris Abdul, my father, my in-laws, all my family, and comrades who are in the ancestral level as we speak. Ancestral realm, excuse me. And all the brothers and sisters out there, especially the ones who are fighting for the liberation and salvation of our black nation. I'm coming to you today to honor the 8th year that Brother Michael Jackson made his ascension. And I do have a whole PowerPoint presentation on that, on Michael Jackson. However, it doesn't come out right on the video clip if I, use the projector and whatnot. So, and as you know, I always do my video clips. I basically freelance and come off the top of my head with the information to provide for you, as a sign to let you know that, I do my research, manually and visually, that I do my homework, and my memory bank is not, the best in the land. However, I try to do my best to provide the information to you all, to enlighten you all, educate you all as to the work that I have put in. But we're going to talk about the triumphs and tragedies, of the brother Michael Jackson, and right now what I'm going to do, and it's okay to laugh, it's okay to cry, but I'm just going to start off, when the brother was, in 1969, when they first came on the Ed Sullivan show, and how they, just turned it out and turned over a new leaf in music. And for them to be so young, Mike to be so young, those babies, all of them were basically babies because they were, they were basically, I think Jackie may have been 17 or 18, but that was still, a baby. For them to perform like that at such a level that, they were phenomenal, and right now I'm just going to go and I'm going to play an excerpt, from them at the, when they first made their television appearance on the Ed Sullivan show. And for those who don't know who Ed Sullivan is, he was like the, whatever, whatever show host you can name that's premiere now, that invites black musical talent. You can just say Ed Sullivan was the premier crack of them, because we didn't have any black show hosts of that magnitude at that time. However, I'm just gonna let's just go ahead and talk about Mike's not only Michael Jackson but the Jackson 5 at that time. Being on the Ed Sullivan show, and prior to that, how Joe Jackson had to work 19 hours in a steel mill and put food on the table for 13 people each and every day without missing a day, without missing one day. And they would get out of school, do their homework, eat dinner, change clothes, get in their raggedy van, and go to Chicago, different places, all over Indiana, Chicago, Detroit, and play at these titty bars at night, mostly all night, 2 in the morning, drive back, get back to the house at 4, get about an hour sleep, eat breakfast, and go to school, And that's what made them so phenomenal, they were, exceptionally gifted. The creating ancestors had blessed them, but it came with pain. And all that stuff about Joe Jackson being, this demon and, this monster, or whatever you want to, whatever white America wanted to, call this brother, which was very, very foul, and we bought into it. I mean, he wasn't the greatest father in the world, but he was one of the most committed, disciplined, and determined parents that the black planet has ever seen. He had to be great to produce such a phenomenal group of people. Jermaine was playing bass at 9 and 10 years old. Tito was playing, guitar. If you can hear it in the background, this is all of their playing, with the exception of I think it was their cousin or an old young guy lived across the street that played drums for them. Until Randy became old enough to join the group, and he began to take charge of the percussions. But Michael was, to memorize, all of these songs and sing and dance, at such a phenomenal level, and that shows how powerful the black gods are. That's all that shows. Shows the world how powerful the black gods are. And if you are a devil and you are a cracker, we can a black person can understand why a white devil would be, have so much hate, for the black race, because of how we have the Midas touch on anything that we lay hands on. We just personify and magnify and beautify and put such a God-like twist, not God, like a God twist on everything that we commit ourselves to do. And this cracker Ed Sullivan, he had no choice but to put them on national TV at the time. Although blacks weren't on TV like that, but to get the ratings that he got, he had no choice but to let these young gods, on his show. And he never got ratings nowhere near as high ever again as he got when he had the Jackson 5 on his show. Now I'm going to talk about, and pay homage to, first of all, paying homage to Michael Jackson, saying, Ashe, give the brother his props. And, the reason for these crackers, he was murdered. Let's be clear about this. Let's be very, very clear. I'm going to talk about some things you may not even know that took place in terms of Michael Jackson's murder, such as the reason for the murder, because Mike owned half of Sony, and Sony's catalog is I have a copy of it. I have to just look for it, but it's about close to 30 pages, with thousands of artists. And I can name some artists you wouldn't believe: Chris Brown, Christina Aguilera, Beyonce, Jay-Z, DMX, Usher, Drake, Any artist that you can name, even Marvin Gaye, Little Richard, the Beatles, Paul McCartney, I mean, anybody that you can name, he owned 50% of whatever they've done with Sony. Any business, any music that they conducted with Sony, Michael Jackson got 50% of it. So the part about him being broke, and don't go for that. You know, don't believe that. You know, Mike was a multi-billionaire. On the Neverland Ranch, under the Neverland Ranch, is an abundance of crude oil, enough oil, nearly half of the country of Kuwait. That's how much oil that is under the Neverland Ranch. That's why it has not been touched. Now, the way he was murdered, he was beat to death as well. I have actual autopsy photo pictures of him bruised up from head to toe. And Tommy Mottola sent goons in his house to beat Michael Jackson, to beat him to death. And of course they're going to say it's an overdose of propofol based on the fact that he was using that. So that wasn't a secret. And that's an easy alibi that the public will buy. You know, it wasn't no secret about that. However, the public haven't seen how badly beaten he was and how much of a rush they were in to get Mike, you know, put away. Now, $2 million was taken out of the house, which was Michael's petty cash. His jewelry and everything was missing. Now, he called Dick Gregory. Dick, you know, told Dick Gregory, you know, they was trying to kill him. He was holding on to Dick Gregory when Dick Gregory was over the house. Told Dick Gregory not to leave. You know, why he left is still a mystery to us. You know. So, you know, the bloody shirt was recovered out of Michael's house that he had on. I believe it was one of those silk bloody shirts. You know, that was recovered a few months later. And the sheriff who knew about the bloody shirt, the sheriff of that town, this is how big the cover-up was. By him keeping his mouth shut, he was given a job at the CIA right here in right down the street in Langley, Virginia. So, you know, this is how deep this goes, all the way to the CIA, the FBI and the CIA. Through Sony and Tommy Mottola and the rest of these, you know, these so-called elite crackers that are part of a worldwide network that refuses to let any blacks be on the hierarchy of the music industry. And a lot of y'all think Jay-Z is, but he's not. Jay-Z he's not shit. He's just like 50 Cent and the rest of them. He's no different. He just became a household name. That was just an illusion to make you think that the racism doesn't exist in the music industry because one of your own is sitting at the table with these motherfucking elite crackers, so-called elite crackers, which is a goddamn lie. That's not true. He's just like 50 Cent may be more, have more power than him now by him being into mainstream television now. you know, with his TV show Power. And the things that he's done, or had, you know, with the liquor, you know, the usual shit niggas do when they get money, come with their own liquor, their own shoes, you know, the same shit, you know, without coming up with their own town. Why don't you come up with your own treatment center, your own community center? You know, you always got to come up with your new rims and your new watches and your new jeans and shoes and liquor and all that bullshit. You know, come up with your own town. You know, come up with your own food bank. None of you motherfuckers have that. You know, Mike and Tupac, you know, as far as I know, were two of the most committed people to struggle in the black community. Even though Mike went through his white shit and all that, you know, Cracker showed him he was a nigga. You know, when they put the boys on him. You know, so, but at the same time, Mike fed, a lot of people ate off Mike. My thing with Mike was, you know, you got to look out for your own first. Stop doing that, you know, black and white bullshit, you know, and deal with your people. Deal with your people first. You know, but, you know, Pac, you know, the goals and visions that Pac had, you know, Pac was trying to make sure everybody ate. You know, so, you know, and with Michael Jackson, you know, that was the thing with his murder, you know, and they wanted to get him buried quick. You know, the family seemed, you know, they didn't even, it seemed like, you know, they had no emotional content in terms of sadness about Mike. You know, and that came from the fact that Michael Jackson, this is, you know, when the Jackson 5 fell off, you know, around 1981, Mike was taking care of everybody. You know, to the point they were coming to him for money so much where Mike had to make them, you know, schedule an appointment. You know, and the jealousy had gotten so, you know, they were so overwhelmed with jealousy. The brothers, Randy, you know, who was an alcoholic and addict, drove his car, you know, through the Jackson's gate and everything for money. Mike didn't owe him anything. How could Michael Jackson owe his little brother anything when they brought him in? He was paid royally. And so Mike had got tired of taking care of them because they thought that they didn't have to do anything anymore. Just fall back, you know, and have babies and, you know, because, you know, Jermaine, he was fucking everything that walked past his motherfucking gate, you know, because he still neck up in child support today. You know, and they were, you know, coming to him for money, 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 money. But see, when Mike went through his trials, you didn't see the whole Jackson clan walking in the courtroom with Mike. And see, shit like that, you know, that shit like that broke Mike's heart. And man, he was a broken man when he left here. He was a broken man. You know, even at the 30th anniversary, when they celebrated it on September 10th, 2001, in Madison Square Garden in New York, Mike was so dope sick he couldn't get up. They finally got him up, and he still performed that night. But the next day, you know, the Twin Towers were hit. You know, that's when the Bush and the you know, Israeli Mossad and all them motherfuckers got together and knocked those towers down. And the rules changed in this country. But anyway, you know, that propofol with Dr. Conrad Murray, he was threatened. They would kill. They threatened to kill his family if he didn't take the charge. And he did he did about 25 months in L.A. County Jail, and he was released. Now, isn't it ironic that for him to be a celebrity, why didn't he go to a federal penitentiary? Why wasn't he allowed any visits, any contact with the outside world? Why isn't it a book deal on the table? Why isn't it a movie about him? Because those things are not allowed. They didn't want him to open his mouth, and he kept his mouth closed for the sake of his family. So it's this thing is, like I said, it's so deep, and I'm just coming off the top as best as I can with the information. Like I said, I have the PowerPoint whole presentation, so just bear with me while I try to drop some science on y'all concerning Michael Jackson. But he was the fall guy for this. You haven't heard anything from him since. He's been released from jail, L.A. County Jail. And you haven't heard anything from him. And now what they're doing, they're waiting till Catherine or Joe Jackson passes over. And then they're going to have a field day. Because Jermaine and the rest of the brothers and sisters are going to literally give these crackers all of Michael Jackson's estate so they can live comfortably. They don't give a fuck about Michael Jackson's legacy. They could care less about that. All they want to do, because greed has been, instilled in them years ago, through Joe Jackson. And that's all they're concerned about. When their parents pass away, and they give their children, the nephews a cut, and they're going to take millions. All of them are going to take millions. They're going to sell Michael's shit damn near dirt cheap to these crackers, which his shit is worth billions and billions of dollars. But they're not going to hold out. They're not going to hold out to get what Mike rightfully deserves for all of his estate. So anybody can basically see that clearly. And I'm going to let y'all hear one of an excerpt from Michael Jackson, how he went, on. He talked about Tommy Mottola, he talked about Sony, his status with them and the like. Just a brief, excerpt from Michael Jackson.
Because every album that I record, I write, like, literally, I'm telling you the truth, I write at least 120 songs every album I do. So I can do the box set and just give them any 2 songs. So I'm leaving Sony a free agent of owning half of Sony. So I own half of Sony's publishing, and I'm leaving them, and they're very angry at me because of it. But I just did good business, Tell him, Michael. Tell the story. But so the way they get revenge is to try and destroy my album. But I've always said, you know, good art never dies. Thank you. I love Unbreakable. You know, and Tommy Mottola is a devil.
Respect! Now you see where he stated, you know, owning half of Sony's publishing and calling Tommy Mottola a devil. You know, and see those Tommy Mottola, you know, him and them, them Guinea motherfuckers, you know, that he's connected with them Guinea motherfuckers up in New York. You know, they believe in, you know, slapping queens around because, you know, he did Mariah Carey and, you know, called her a half eggplant bitch and all this type of stuff and beat the shit out of her. You know, however, you know, he had no respect for Mike. Mike was just being used. Tommy Mottola is what you call a motherfucking soprano type motherfucker. Guinea ass, you know, linguini motherfucker. You know, that y'all have all these, you know, Al Pacino fucking posters and you wear all that bullshit, Marlon Brando, Godfather t-shirts and all that shit. You know, and them motherfuckers can't stand y'all. Call you eggplants and mouillons and all that bullshit. You know, but y'all, you know, you motherfuckers celebrate that shit. Rockefeller and, you know, G-Unit and fucking, you know, Scarface and all that bullshit. You know, but, you know, that's what led to Mike being beaten to death, you know, and put in a position, you know, where he his family, like I said, you know. And another thing, let's get this straight. None of them children are his. None of them. It's no way a black man can be with a white woman and the baby come out 100% white with blonde hair. It's never heard of. There's no such thing as that. Those are not his children at all. You know, those children belong, and you're going to see when it's time, because that white bitch, Debbie, whatever her motherfucking name is, that fat white cave bitch, you know, she knows, and it's probably her, you know, well, that's her baby's daddy, you know, blanket and all them motherfucking little fucking cracklets, you know, and, you know, those are not his children. You know, he knew that, and, you know, and that's the thing that I just can't understand. You know, all these black children, you know, that need homes and need loving parents and need to be nurtured, that are in these motherfucking homes and in these institutions, begging and pleading, you know, for decent parenting, a decent upbringing. And you go pick y'all pick these motherfucking crackers, you know, and it just didn't start. You know, this shit goes all the way back. Josephine Baker did that bullshit. I mean, it's you know, it just didn't start. You know, and that has a lot to do with slavery, because, you know, when you see the, you know, the big mama with, you know, with the little white baby, Master's motherfucking son, you know, sucking on the breast of, you know, Big Mama, You know, where she, you know, where her babies had to watch that shit because, you know, the white baby was special. And so that shit set in the DNA of our ancestors. And that's why they look at these motherfucking crackers with so much, you know, and so much high regard. You know, and I used to do that, you know, coming up. You know, you know, being taught to be patriotic, put your, you know, in school, putting your hand over your heart for the flag and all that bullshit. You know, and you know, but when you become conscious, you see the shit for what it really is, not for how they trained you to think. And that's the beauty of being conscious. You get to see the shit for what it is. And I don't see them like that. I see them as subhuman. You know, they stink. They're ice apes. But I don't go around disrespecting them. You know. But I'm not gonna limit the truth on them in terms of who they are. I'm not gonna put any limitations on that shit. You know, you all can forget that shit. You know, you too harsh on, you know, what we need to do, you know, come to the table with them and all this shit, you know, and niggas shut the fuck up. You know, because it's niggas, you know, it's niggas with that type of mindset that keep us in motherfucking mental and mental motherfucking bondage, man. And keep us under social control like motherfucking robots, man. Robots of white racism, white supremacy, man. And then a lot of y'all, you know, y'all now call getting your swirl on all this nasty shit. You know, that shit is nasty, swirling and all that bullshit. You know, a lot of y'all run up under these motherfucking crackers, you know, because you don't want to put in the work. You don't want to put in the tireless work of helping and assisting in the liberation of your people. So it's easy to hide up under the motherfucking slave master, hide up under the motherfucking enemy. Because you don't want to put no motherfucking work in. You know, and I get sick of that shit, man. You know, because deep down inside, y'all really not comfortable, you know, sleeping with them motherfuckers. You're not. You know, you got hair in your mouth, they stink, all that shit, man. And you women, you know, sleeping with them hairy ass, you know, ice apes. They got hair all over their back, everywhere, man. Hair on their toes, you know, and they stink, and y'all motherfuckers, you know, you're doing that, you're making that sacrifice